you, Mr. Richmond Rockson. You speak for the Energy Ministry, and I was saying earlier that we heard the president about 2 weeks ago really confidently saying that by 2026 we should see that 3 billion, over 3 billion people say, energy sector bill, or what you call the legacy debt, as it were, cleared. Do you have an idea what roadmap the government has towards dealing with this?
Good evening to you, Beatrice. Good evening to fellow panelists. And then good evening to your cherished viewers. Currently, I'll describe the power sector. You mentioned energy, but I will narrow it down to the power sector as the biggest economic and fiscal risk that currently we face as a country. If you asked earlier whether the sector is in crisis, it's a very challenged sector, and the data will show. If you have a sector with a debt of about $3.1 billion, that's what this government inherited in January 2025. If you have a sector that is spending over $1.1 billion on liquid fuels alone, if you have a sector that you have the distributor having a deficit of averagely about 2 billion Ghana cedis each month. If you have a sector where independent power players or producers are owed 1.7 billion, that's over $1.7 billion, definitely you describe it as a sector that is very challenging. And that is why His Excellency the President and the ministry has given it critical attention or special attention to ensure that whatever problems are there, largely which has to do with finance, is dealt with. In 2015, when your mama was president, JM1, as the first administration, we had some of these challenges. We had serious generation capacity issues. It was improved drastically. We got to a point where we had excess capacity. ESLA was introduced at a time to deal with the debt that had ridden the sector. Unfortunately, we all know how ESLA was mismanaged. Beyond directing the monies to something else, it was collateralized, and then also eventually bonds were issued. And then during the DDEP, we had all the challenges associated with it. So yes, the sector is a very challenging one, but the managers of the sector are more than capable of dealing with the issues and are committed to giving it a clean bill of health in the next couple of months.
You haven't answered the question as to the roadmap towards clearing the legacy debt. Like we heard the president say, we need to have a clean slate. What is the roadmap? What's the plan? Do you have an idea?
Yes, so the first thing is to bring efficiency to the sector. If you look at the challenges that we've had, the major headache would have to be one, the fuels that the liquid fuels that we purchase, and then the second will have to be ECG. If you take the fuels, what it is that the fuels that currently government we purchase to power these thermal plants are not part of the tariff structure. So every now and then, government itself has to find money. We always have to call on Ministry of Finance to be able to raise the required amount to finance the purchasing of liquid fuels. If you look at 2024 alone, the government spent $1.1 billion.
And I'm understanding that this year alone, from January till now, you spent about $1.2+ billion on just getting both gas and liquid fuel as well to power the thermal plants. Is that right?
That is true, and that's a major headache, because if you have a tariff structure that does not take into consideration the cost of fuels, it means that every now and then government will have to find the money. Well, this is not sustainable, and that is why government is looking at having sustainable funding when it comes to the fuel issues.
So that's why I asked you the question, because the president has already given a deadline. He says by 2026. So you are enumerating the problems to us, and I'm asking you, yes, you want to make the ECG efficient. You want to make the electricity company of Ghana efficient. And then you're talking about how much we're spending on fuel alone just to power our thermal plants. So I'm just asking,
Yes.
aside from making ECG efficient, and I'll be glad if you're even able to break it down for us, how you mean by making ECG efficient within the time frame the president has set for the government.
Yes, which is, if you had allowed me, I would have responded to that. I was coming to dealing with the fuel issue, which is one of the biggest headaches. If that is why this evening or today, the Finance Ministry, the government has introduced the Energy Sector Levies Amendment Bill 2025 to be able to address that challenge, because that is a major bill when it comes to finance. It has a very deep fiscal impact on our finances. So the bill that has been introduced today is to ensure that, one, we have a dedicated fund for the power sector. For the power sector, one part of it will go into dealing with the debts that has accrued over the period. A portion will also go into investment. Part will also go into dealing with the fuel challenges that we have. And this is also part of the roadmap in dealing with. Because of the introduction of this bill, that's why His Excellency was very confident that in the next few months we'll be able to deal with the debt, because now we're looking at sustainable funding to be able to deal with this major challenge the sector. The second thing has to do with ECG. When it comes to dealing with the efficiencies of ECG, no company will be able to survive when you have an aggregate technical and commercial loss of about 40%. No company in the world will be able to survive. So the first thing that the government is looking at is to bring efficiency to ECG's operations. The first thing is that the government has said that when it comes to MDAs, all MDAs should be able to pay for the electricity that they consume. The only thing that has happened is that you have some institutions that will be on prepayment, and you have others that will be on post-payment. But the underlying point is that all MDs, every ministry, department, or agency by government is going to pay for electricity that they consume. Once that is done, it means that ECG's revenue collection will improve drastically.
Effective when?
Once ECG...
Forgive me, I'll let you continue.
It's immediate. It's immediate. In fact, the directive has gone to ECG already that they should go around and do the installation and also recover all monies owed by all persons, including government institutions that have not paid. And we use Ghana Water as an example, that one institution cannot be owing ECG that is almost getting to the 1 billion cedis. It's unsustainable.
So perhaps in the next few days, we should be seeing, for instance, ECG disconnecting some of these public institutions like we saw last year because they owed?
Absolutely. The directive has gone to ECG already. This is a cabinet decision chaired by the president himself, and then it is being supervised by the ministry. The directive has gone to ECG and NEDCO already. So we're expecting that once that is done, the revenues by due ECG and NEDCO should improve. Once they also improve with their collections, you will now have enough money to be able to pay for power that has been procured. You have money to be able to deal with some of the challenges when it comes to the IPP debt. You have more money to spread across when it comes to cash waterfall mechanisms. Because one thing that we've noticed is that, yes, the IPPs are owed, but mostly if the cash waterfall mechanism is fair and they make some money every month, they're able to work and they're able to give you some breathing space for government to also restructure. And that is one of the measures that the government is doing to improve collection as well. And like I mentioned earlier, beyond improving collection, technical and commercial losses are being looked at. You have a number of areas that have transformer issues. All those things eventually will go into loss of power, because you have power producing, you're producing the power, you're generating the power is being supplied, but it is not going to the intended recipient because of some of these challenges that we have.
So when you talk about
improvement,
when you talk about transformer issues, are you replacing the transformers?
Yes, I mean, the last week, ECG has been given approval to acquire 200 transformers from Ghana.
What about the obsolete?
Roll them out.
The obsolete transmission lines as well?
They are all included. Like I said, it's a comprehensive plan. So if you let me land, then I'll be able to move to the next. Otherwise, if you interrupt with me, it'll be difficult to put it across. ECG has been given them the authorization to replace over 200 transformers within the period. And that will definitely go ahead to help with the outages that we've been experiencing over the period, and also help to reduce the technical losses that ECG has experienced within the period. Aside that, when it comes to the distribution side, the government has put in place a number of measures. When it comes to revenue collection as well, don't forget PSP has been introduced by government. It's also been approved by government. When I say PSP, I mean private sector participation in ECG. The government does not intend to sell ECG, no. The government intends to introduce private sector participation through concessions to make sure that the billing and collection is improved. With all these measures in place, definitely the financing or the fiscal space will be better, it will improve, and at the end of the day, these debts will be able to be dealt with. Beyond that, when it comes to...
And if you could be wrapping up for us, because I need to give opportunity to other people to talk as well and for us to advance the conversation, sir.
Let me make this last point. Beyond that, if you look at the liquid fuels that we purchase as a country, government is constructing a new gas processing plant, because if you look at the ratio between liquid fuels and then natural gas, it's almost half the cost. So last year we spent 1.1 billion. If we're doing natural gas with that same on liquid fuels, we're doing natural gas, we would have spent maybe 500 or 600 million. And that will also go into the financing, and then it will give the government some breathing space. All those balances are monies that can be channeled into investment or into paying some of these debts that we've seen. Overall, it has to do with the policy intervention and improving efficiency. Once that is done, definitely we should be able to deal with the debts within the period that His Excellency the President has set.
And we are going to be hearing Dr. Kasiel Atuforsin, the Finance Minister, very shortly, exactly what he said on the floor of Parliament just some hours ago. But let me ask you this quick question for clarity. You talk about the investment into our transformers as well as transmission lines, not just to reduce, the technical losses, but also improve the quality of electricity we get in our homes. What time period do we have to ensure, for us to see a reflection of this in our homes? How soon?
Beatrice, if you observe, in May, in fact, the first 4 months were very challenging. But in May, the grid has fairly stabilized. The complaints, because we also monitor the calls, the complaints from people. And in May, we noticed that there's been significant improvement. In fact, if you check with ECG, for 2 years, they were not doing any major maintenance. And this is a fact. And if you check the data from Gridco, in December 2024 alone, the load shedding was over 700 megawatts. That is not what we've seen now. There's been vast improvement over the period. This is because the measures are being implemented immediately and as we move on. So every now and then, the sector players, the stakeholders are engaging, measures are being put in place to make sure that the service that we enjoy or the consumers enjoy improve. So if you ask timelines, it's already in motion. It's already in motion. That's why we are seeing some improvement. We are very confident that moving forward for next month, next 2 months, definitely our supply will be better. The goal is to have reliable, sustainable power supply at a cheaper cost for the people of Ghana.
In the next 2 months, we should see improvements. We shouldn't see any light outs in our communities. Again, just very briefly, you gave us the...
No, Beatrice, let me clarify. Our generation capacity today, the demand and supply, if you check the data, we have not been shedding load. So ordinarily, we shouldn't be experiencing any outages in our home. So
currently, we are not shedding load.
No,
we are not shedding any load.
No.
So if the data, forgive me. So the light outs people have been experiencing have been due to these transformers and the transmission lines and the other technical challenges you talked about earlier.
Exactly. That's why I said that we are not shedding load. the generation is sufficient to deal with our demand. The challenges that we're having now has to do with the distribution lines, the distribution system. And that is why there's been improvements over the period. And people will testify that there are people that they call to complain. Immediately ECG when they fix the problem, and they haven't experienced that, or the lights out has been very minimal. It has nothing to do with our generation capacity. And with the maintenance ongoing, definitely, at a point in time, we should see a total stop to the problem.
And that's what you said in the next 2 months.
No, I didn't say the next 2 months. I said we've started it. It's ongoing. This month has been significant. We've seen significant improvement, and we'll continue to see it each day because of the work that is ongoing.
I want to